Thank you. Oh. Yeah, I wish I could do the latter. Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the music and for being here. And especially this day, I was telling Nina and Kathy before the service that I don't normally watch the news or even look, but today I just happened to see what's going on in the world and I wished I hadn't. So, or maybe not, maybe it was a good thing I did. So, because we're here. I'm going to put this down here. So our theme is the role of imagination in spirituality. And of course, I'm going to switch it up a little bit, and I'm going to title my talk, Using Your Imagination Mindfully Along Your Spiritual Journey. So I've been reading a couple of books by Ellen Langer, and she is a professor at Harvard in the psychology department. She was the first woman tenured in that department at Harvard. And I first listened to her on a podcast, and I was so impressed with her perception and her attitude about life that I got two books. One of them is The Mindful Body. The other is On Becoming an Artist. And I realized as I was thinking about this talk and reading the books, that we don't just use our imaginations. We are our imaginations all the time. To question what is the role of imagination in spirituality is to try to separate out as different the very thing that we are. Our imagination creates our bodies and our world. We use our imaginations either mindlessly or mindfully. It's not a separate aspect of ourselves. Imagination is the energy of creation. Using your imagination is simply you consciously tapping into the divine within. I've heard people say, oh, I'm not very imaginative or I'm not very creative. Well, that is like the farthest thing from the truth because you are creating your life every minute. You imagined your body into existence. You have, and in fact, at this moment, are imagining and bringing into existence your life. You know, I used to hear the term mindfulness, let's be mindful, and I would just roll my eyes. Because once the corporate world got a hold of it, you know, it became this like thing to say. So I was a little bit leery when I started listening to Ellen Langer and her term mindfulness. She uses the term mindfulness to simply mean the process of noticing new things. It is seeing the similarities in things thought different and the differences in things taken to be similar. In other words, just being more observant of what's going on around you. Using your imagination mindfully means somewhat the same thing, but observing from within and trusting and following the path to whatever it is you want or need that has been presented to you. I have a friend who went to Europe. She went on a long trip to Europe. And she was in a museum. and saw a painting by Caravaggio. It's called The Crucifixion of St. Peter. She was telling me this later after she got home. We were having lunch, and she said, I saw the painting and I was overcome. I couldn't look at it. I could not even glance at it. I was so emotional about it. So I get on my phone because I wanted to see which one it was that he painted. And I'm like, is it this one? And she just glanced at it. She was like, I literally, I cannot look at it without being overcome with emotion. Why is that? What, what's going on here? Up until about 150 years ago, the great works of Western art were all created under extreme limitation and constraint. There were no galleries. If you were a musician, there were no symphonies, no symphony halls, no art shows, no books, no art in the park, nothing. Your only avenue to becoming an artist, expressing yourself, was either through a very wealthy patron or the church. Usually it was the church. And you were told what size to make the painting. You were told if it wasn't a portrait of the patron or his family, you were told what characters, what story they wanted. It was usually a biblical story, sometimes mythological. Everything just about was constrained. You had no tubes of paint. You had to grind your own paints. So you had a handful of paints. It wasn't like today where we have every color you can imagine of paints and every kind of paint you can paint with. Very, very constrained and limited. But out of those limitations came works of art of incredible beauty. A beauty that can move us to feel beyond our experience. My friend was Jewish, is Jewish. She had no concept of what the story of Peter is, yet she was moved to tears. So under those extreme limitations, an artist had to reach deeper into themselves to connect with divine imagination. And that deeper reach was transferred and brought to life in the painting. Caravaggio brought all the emotion he could imagine about the situation. He wasn't there. It was, 1,500 years afterwards. And he poured that into the painting, which my friend felt as she looked at the painting. Last year, I took an almost year-long course, Mastering Composition, with Ian Roberts. In his book, Creative Authenticity, he uses the term limits, yield, intensity. Yield in this case means to give forth. Have you ever tried to hold your breath for a long period of time for whatever reason? Why would you do that? But for whatever reason. And when you finally take a breath, it feels so good. Limits yield intensity. Limits push us to new levels. Rumi says new powers of perception come because of necessity, So increase the necessity. Once I forgot my tube of white paint and I was out plein air painting. And I was out where I couldn't go home. So I was getting ready to pack it up. And then I thought, well, I have a tube of light yellow. I wonder what that would do. I wonder what would happen. Where did that thought come from? I was given the thought through my divine imagination out of necessity. Necessity is truly the mother of invention. I use that a lot now because I liked what happened. Limitations, necessity forces us to dig deep into the well of imagination and spiritual connection. We have to trust in our imagination because it is our divine spirit whispering to us. Having an intensity of focus will connect us with our divine imagination. I love to sit outside in the summertime in the backyard, especially around lunchtime where it's not too hot, but the sun has warmed everything and there's flowers near where I sit and you can hear all the pollinators on the flowers. You can hear sprinklers in the background, way off in the distance, maybe a lawnmower. Close your eyes. There's an intensity of vibrational sound that is spirit. It's the spirit of everything all at once. When we focus intently but quietly, our imagination comes alive with creative energy. We're in the flow at that point. And this is the basis for Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. Becoming observant, listening to the still small voice inside. Whatever task you are engaging yourself in, be it washing the dishes or meditating or listening to the bees, limit your focus and it yields intensity, an intensity of life. Listening to and feeling the vibrational energy of creative imagination. When we focus on the divine, we are limiting the extraneous junk around us, therefore allowing for limits to yield intensity. In this way, our imagination is a guide, always leading us along our spiritual path. You don't have to be outside sitting. You don't have to be meditating in a trance. You don't have to be doing anything to experience mindful imagination. Access it in whatever way you can. Because if we are mindfully creative, using our imagination mindfully, the circumstances of the moment will tell us what to do. Therefore, it's critical to just pay attention, to be mindful of or where your imagination is leading you through the circumstances of the moment. This is your spiritual journey, not someone else's. It is when we are unsure and not listening to our imagination that we allow others to tell us how to go about whatever it is we were needing. We let them tell us their truth from their imagination. We are constantly bombarded with someone else's decisions, from what kind of chair we should sit in, to someone putting a roundabout some stupid place, to someone telling you that, oh, well, you only have a 20% chance of living. And unfortunately, someone else has decided for us what a spiritual path or an evolved spiritual person is supposed to look like. We have been presented with pictures and descriptions of the right spiritual path through all kinds of books, movies, and other people. Some spiritual paths that we have been led to mindlessly accept are that we need to do certain things in order to progress. You need to meditate all day long. You need to find a cause to champion, even if it means you might be crucified. You need to heal some people. You need to try to do something fantastic like turn water into wine. And you definitely need to walk on water. Yes, Jesus did these things, but we forget. His actions were contextual to his time and place. If he were here today, would he do those things? Might do something else, but it's all contextual to time and place. What he did was different from the norm of the day, and what he did served his purpose of becoming a teacher. All the unique combinations of time, space make up the context in which you live each moment. One choice presents a particular context. You make another choice, and the context of your decisions changes. This occurs over and over all day long. The consequences of using your imagination for your spiritual growth has to be unique to you in this very moment, because you make a choice, your imagination creates a new path and a new context. It's kind of like I've talked about my game board where you make a decision and everything changes. Same thing. So each decision, the context of your life changes for the next lesson along your path. To follow a path of someone else is to be mindlessly using your divine imagination. So start questioning why and who said so. It's the one thing I've really gotten out of Ellen's books is that it's okay to question. It's okay to ask, well, who said so? You may not be able to do anything about it, but who said so? Who said that if you have this disease, you're not going to live? Who said so? When you start questioning things about your life, it becomes easier to question things that we hold sacred, such as our spiritual path and how we're going about it. We think it's supposed to happen this way because that's how it happened to other people, and we're told so by someone that we view as authoritative. Who said so? Our spirit constantly calls for us to express itself in a unique way. Ian Roberts again says, our spirit calls us to express ourselves, to say something. It is a voice that won't be shouted down, a desire to explore what sings to us quietly inside. We are being called. The call is divine. Your imagination gives you your authentic voice to express yourself through your unique divine journey, whatever that may be. I am constantly finding all these concepts from things that seem so far apart, such as the Course in Miracles and Ellen Langer's books and, what have you. It's just interesting how they all merge. And even though the metaphors used are different, they're talking about the same thing. So mindful attentiveness to your imagination is the same thing as Emmett Fox's golden key. The golden key is stop thinking about whatever difficulty you're having and think about God instead. If you're thinking about your difficulty, you're not thinking about God. And Emmett Fox admonishes us not to try to form a picture of God because that is impossible. Say a different way, when you sit quietly, when you draw your limits of your worldly focus down to your heart, when you sit quietly and listen to the voice inside you, then you are thinking about God and you are letting God present solutions via your divine imagination. This is why I say imagination is divine spirit. Your life flourishes when you think about God, when you pay attention to the inner voice, what it's trying to tell you. We get into trouble when we don't pay attention to what our still small voice is trying to tell us. Even when things don't go as you planned or hoped, your imagination is providing fertile ground for solutions. Trust, because events haven't just gelled yet. Trust in that imagination. There's an element of trust that follows from paying attention that is implicit in the golden key. Trusting your imagination is trusting in the path being given you through your divine self. Whether you view your situation from a mindful or mindless position determines how the context of your life changes. Trust the guidance, and you open doors of possibility. When viewing your situation mindlessly, you've taken your imagination, your divine self, out of the equation and out of the solution. It is what happens when you worry. When you worry, you're mindlessly using your imagination because you are focusing on something that has no creative energy. Worry actually blocks access to our imagination. When we worry, the chitter chatter, it's like a big splat of, energy. It's not focused. It's not limited in. Anyway, all of that chatter screams over the still small voice inside, and we won't hear anything. We won't hear a solution that's always there through our imagination. It's not that your imagination is not there because it is you. It's that you are blocking it. Uncertainty creates the freedom to discover meaning. Don't discount any possibility that you can imagine because your imagination is your divine spirit talking to you. Invite uncertainty into your life because it gives you opportunity for connecting with divine imagination and consequently spiritual growth. To quote Ian again, spiritual growth involves a rigorous stripping away of falseness and blindness. The blindness comes from mindlessly using our imaginations by following someone else's spiritual path, not paying attention, shutting ourselves off from access to our imagination through worry and distrust. I recently read a little, I guess it's a poem, very small, by David White, who is an Anglo-Irish poet, speaker, and writer. He says, always this energy smolders inside. When it remains unlit, the body fills with dense smoke. The dense smoke is mindlessly using your imagination by not observing, by not listening to and trusting the divine within. Following our imagination mindfully gives your spiritual path meaning. It lights the energy of your authentic voice. Thank you. So we're going to do just a short meditation. And with that, I would like for you to just sit quietly for a few minutes and listen to that voice inside. Access it, feel that vibration of creative energy that is you. Dear God, we thank you for the gift of our divine imaginative self. Like a spider that automatically knows to build a beautiful geometric web, we don't have to do anything but listen. And trust. Thank you, and amen. So now it is time for our prayer for protection. Okay. The light of God surrounds us. We are the light. The love of God enfolds us. We are the love. The power of God protects us. We are the power. The presence of God watches over us. We are the presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. We are one.